Welcome to Old World, the Old World Civilization in Antiquity, a turn-based strategy game for X rounds, which is different from the Great Civilization series. It takes place only in antiquity, from the Bronze Age to the late antiquity, over an extended period. Civilizations are wildly mixed, with some of them missing up to 1,000 years between their historical existence, so there could be a millennium in between. But according to our feeling today, it still all seems like a dense time zone, unlike in Civilization, because the game feels very compact. It's presented in a very unified way, with music, game world, and weaponry all coming from a single mold. A very immersive experience, one where you can really forget the world around you, and one of my favorite games ever. In my private life, I rarely get the chance to play games. Most of the time, I play in public. It's a very time-consuming job being a streamer and YouTube video creator, but that's one of my big exceptions. In the last 2 years, I've spent about 560 or 565 hours playing the game, and almost all of them were in private. And it's a game that really captivates me, although I also took a long time because of the game settings. You can customize it very individually until I found a combination of game settings that suited me. I want to show you those today with one of my favorite games, Old World. A note, the game is available at Games Planet with my shop partner. The YouTube link is in the description below. But this stream here will take place on November 27, 2025. And during these days around the creation of this stream and the videos, the game is available in the publisher's sale on Steam with a 75% discount. It costs just under 10 euros right now, only 9 euros and some change. So at the moment, if you're watching this soon after release, I would recommend buying it there and not through my shop partner. But the game is often on sale there as well, and often even cheaper, so it's worth mentioning that too. As I said, the link is below. Let's get started. We're live on Twitch with almost 500,000 viewers, and the numbers are gradually increasing. Thanks for the subscription, to Bixel for the 7th, 17th, and to everyone else for the good vibes. I've noticed a lot of Old World folks in the chat, many of whom got the game at some point but had trouble getting into it. Even though the tutorial is actually well done, the game interprets some gameplay features and mechanics that you know from Civilization quite differently. We'll see that in a moment. You have to adjust to it a bit. We'll play single player. I'm not using any mods. I want to thank the mods in the chat for watching over you, but we don't have any modifications in the game. And thanks go out to Stelberg Stefan and to Satras for your subscriptions. The 4th one for Satras, the 1st one for Stefan Blümchen. For the new one, I would suggest new game, and I'll show you my favorite setting, how I like to play the game. I've developed a few typical pairs, combinations of civilizations and leaders that I think are cool, but I don't want to spoil all of them for you now. You should discover those for yourselves, but what I'd like to find out are the game settings. Then behind that, at the top, you can see the different civilizations. When you click on one of the civilizations, you can see alternative leaders below it. Yeah, you can also play with a random leader, right? When you've started the map, during the construction, when placing your first city, you can decide which civilization you want to play with. A funny feature. I would like to play with you. Combined with Egypt, not with the standard ruler, not with Hatshepsut, but with Cheops, because I think they complement each other very well, and you can play peacefully and build great wonders of the world. I'll explain why in a moment. The Egyptians give you 400 stones at the start. Stone is a resource that in the first, 60 or 70 turns, I'm just guessing a bit here, is always too scarce. At first you always have too little food, then you always have too little wood and too little stone, and you need stone. As the game progresses, you need increasingly larger quantities, since advanced buildings require much more. And also the wonders of the world, that means 400 stones to start with, is basically an invitation to build an early wonder. The supplier then gives 2 more things. The first one If you're lucky enough to start by a river and build a farm on a river, then these farms give extra yields of 40%. That's usually food. And then all cities, that's not quite as strong a bonus. The wording there is also a bit awkward. Adjacent expansion classes cost 20% less. Expansion classes include cultural buildings, theaters, Odeons, etc. Or there are 3 types of baths in the game, or 3 types of military buildings. If you build them next to each other, then constructing the second building is a bit cheaper if you build it next to the first one. This way you can also build triangles. Some buildings can be built multiple times in one city, like several garrisons, for example. This lets you build grids side by side and save significant costs. It's not as powerful as it seems. Definitely not. After that, there are also special units. In the game, chariots and cavalry represent fast units. I think they're cool on large maps for expansion and also for reaching distant cities when you're expanding. Besides, you can do some cool military tactics with them. You start with the technologies: ironworking, masonry, and serfdom. I think masonry is cool because you can get stones earlier, and serfdom, I think, gives you ironworking, which lets you build warriors, I believe, which isn't always a given. And with serfdom, maybe you can build roads. We'll have to check again later. So, and I'd like to combine that with Khufu. Khufu, the rulers in our game are mortal, which means if we start with Khufu, Khufu will age. There can also be events that cost him his life early. And at some point, he will pass his throne on to a child, usually, or to another heir. And that's why it's not quite as powerful. The traits of the leader are like the traits of the nation. That's the first and that's the second fundamental decision. There is. And who starts? By clicking the middle mouse button, you can explore tooltips with the property of builder. That means he can serve in the roles of a governor or a chancellor. Chancellor is chancellor. Governors are so important, they rule the cities. That means, for example, you can govern a city with him and gain experience points by completing buildings in the city. It's always important to check things like that, because sometimes certain rulers have special traits listed as their profession anyway. Check the bonuses and then their trait, like fanatic in the top right. You realize they can't even become governor or similar roles. However, you can change that manually for the governors. You can say you can modify the archetype, meaning the role of the leader, the chosen one, in the advanced game settings as well. And say he's not a builder, he's a fanatic or a hero or something else, but by default, Cheops is a builder. We can appoint him governor, and that's good. Because look at his trait. Graber, that's a character trait, gives him, that's in the city where he is governor, that's what governor means. All mines that produce iron and all quarries that produce stone yield 50 more output. That's a lot, really a lot. And he has a trait as a leader, and he will be a leader in all cities, not just his own. Mines and quarries will yield 20 more output. All of this also applies to the city where he's governor. And the last trait, you see, everything is heading toward world wonders. Remain leader while alive, heading his faction and on the throne. Are the construction costs for world wonders reduced by 25? That's significant, as world wonder construction costs are extremely high. This does not change world wonder construction time. They're built on site by workers, which cuts the mega expensive costs. That's intense. In the chat, Elohim asks what happens if he dies. We hope for an heir, and then all these traits vanish. And the heir then has their own traits and will be assigned somewhere themselves. We'll begin with these two. And I'll read the text that goes with it. I am Cheops of the 4th dynasty of Egypt. I became pharaoh when my father Nofru died. As a child, I was always interested in minerals and stones, and I spent many of my days wandering through my father's quarries. He often talked with his vizier about the many monuments he had built during his reign. He strove to perfect the pyramid design. I often eavesdropped on these conversations to find out how such monuments were built. That's how I learned from the best, and today my goal is to fill all of Egypt with my own monuments. I already have a plan for the greatest monument of all, one that will be regarded as a wonder of the world for many thousands of years to come. What he means by that, if you build the pyramids, there's a little extra event when you play as Khufu. I don't recall exactly, but it's nice. Here we can see again the individual symbols he starts with, the families, the technologies, unique units, and unique buildings that he builds. I don't want to overwhelm you with details, we'll look at all of that later. Now let's go into the advanced setup. We'll start with the simple part. I'm playing on the difficulty level, the Glory Rich, which is the third highest. As a beginner, I recommend choosing a lower one. And if you want one where the AI is as strong as a human, then choose the strong level, because there you'll be on equal footing with the AI. Even for experienced players, it's not embarrassing to start with the strong level. I've always played on strong level and still do. The Fame Rich level is a tough challenge, but it's something you can accomplish. And then cracked in script, that's an important decision. Personally, I have 3 favorite cracked in scripts, and I can quickly name them for you. First, there's the Mediterranean region. It has a diverse landscape of coasts, plains, mountain regions, and islands surrounding a sea that's almost completely enclosed by land. Since we were historically with the Egyptians on the Mediterranean, I find that very fitting. That's why I personally also like the idea of a continent. It's simply a continent you can sail around, and everyone is on one continent. And what I also find quite nice is the coast. See if I can spot it. Up ahead is a region that either has large seas, gulfs, or bays. Long coastlines are formed, a bit inspired by the Middle East, which I also find very beautiful from a historical perspective. The climate is milder, so let's choose the Mediterranean region. It's a safe bet. The size of the powers should be medium, not larger. We don't need to artificially drag out the game. And that's an important thing I recommend. That's not normal. Normal is medium. My personal recommendation, I can really get behind that. Hello Marcel, it's low with the events. The game provides a lot of events. The frequency of events was reduced during development, but it's still very, very high for a 4X strategy game. And personally, I find the game to be clearer and less dependent on randomness when you reduce the frequency of events. That's why my recommendation is to play with it set to low, but it's a matter of personal taste. Thank you, advanced setup. The things from earlier have been carried over. I'm playing with the standard leader. You can see here what I just mentioned. We could assign a different role to another archetype. It's all about passing around. AI settings vary depending on the difficulty level. The number of opponents depends on the map size. We will have 4 opponents. I don't recommend having more opponents. The game recommends a certain map size, otherwise the difficulty level increases significantly because you have trouble finding cities, finding places where you can build cities. And then one thing that I personally highly recommend, which I also found out, seasons. And my suggestion would be that time passes more slowly. That affects how long your ruler reigns. And that's why I'm doing this, because that's how it is for me personally. I always try to find suitable tasks for the characters, not just for the ruler, but also for his relatives or any other people you have at court. If you play with half years or years instead of seasons, time passes much faster. The characters age very quickly, they're gone again in no time, and just when you've gotten used to them, they're already history. And that annoys me to no end. And that's why I've personally had very good experiences playing with seasons. then we probably won't have our ruler Khufu for the entire game. But if we play reasonably well, I'd say we'll have him for about 2/3 of the game. Unless we make him a general, for example, then there's a certain chance that he could die in a battle. That's something you need to know. It's a disadvantage if you use your leader as a military commander and have him lead troops. If he wants to make sure he remains ruler for a long time, he can still get sick without that, but the chances are much higher in the field. I would also recommend that you don't do that. We're playing with seasons on a low event level. When I play privately, I set the victory points to decide how many points you need to win. I set it high so you can enjoy the late game a bit more. Otherwise, the game might end too early, but I don't want to do that on stream. The game suggests 3 victory conditions. We can also activate more once you've reached a certain number of points, which we'll see in the game in a moment. The first faction to do this wins. If you are very successful early on and have twice as many points as anyone else who has reached a certain minimum score, can you shorten it and win earlier? And only the player can do that, not the AI. That is to achieve what's called an ambition victory. I've never managed to achieve that because the game always ended earlier in some other way. You are offered objectives in the game. When you achieve a goal, an ambition, you get an ambition point and a small reward. And here, if you have 10 of these ambitions, then you've won. Man. And then for the card settings, we're playing with a random map. Everything else remains unchanged. I still need to change one thing. Look, I have Delos in. I can leave a lot looking into the game because you have advisors, well-meaning people, and the Kashayu or outer. And the adventures I experience there and the events too. I don't need to have that extra thrill that there are even more things. There are also very frustrating negative events. If you deactivate that, the game doesn't get easier because you deactivate these events. Yes, also for the AI opponents equally, that's not an issue. How hard do I want the game to be compared to the AI? You're in a race with them, but what kind of gameplay experience do I want? And I don't want the stuff behind the throne. So that's it. I think you can ignore that. And then let's get started, guys. Here we go. Have fun with Old World with the Old World. The game music may disappear soon since you need to unlock it with the technology first. We are Pharaoh Khufu, the founder of the 4th dynasty, builder of the Great Pyramid. Now they're repeating which wonder of the world to aim for, even though that was already explained. Our father has entrusted us with the throne. Summon the royal architects and your vizier. The wonders of Egypt will amaze the entire ancient world. Here we are. And that's a really bad start. I'll say yes and no, so it's partly good, partly bad, which is good. We actually have an advantage with farms by rivers. They give us 40 more yields. Here you can see 3 rivers side by side, one here, one in front, and one in back. That's helpful. But with our hero Khufu, we specialize in mountains, quarries, and mines. Mines are best built on hills, but this area is completely flat. Quarries are preferably built next to volcanoes or mountains, because that's where they yield the highest returns. The nearest mountain range is distant. We do have some interesting raw materials here. That's what we have here. That's just for looks. We have horses here, we have game here, and we have honey twice right next to each other. A luxury item. We have camels for building certain units. We have furs up here again and sheep. We have a high resource density. We don't have any resources on the water. That's a shame because managing the sea is without resources. Pretty boring in this game here. We click on our starting unit and we have these 5 tiles where we can settle. A big difference from the Civilization series is that, similar to Age of Wonders, also in Age of Wonders, I think that's how it is, right? That you can only found your cities in certain places. I think so, that's what I remember. I'm mixing it up with another 4X game where you can only found cities in certain spots. I can't recall which one right now. It was Ara Ara History Untold. There you can only found 1 city per province, and it's always placed on a predetermined tile. Something like that, I don't remember exactly. Here you can definitely only found cities on rare city locations, and those depend on the difficulty level. Only a few are available in the area. We should found a city here or we'll spend too long searching. The red radius shows us where, depending on where we start, our city will be located, and which of the cool tiles are included. By holding down the M key, you can display the special tiles for a bit. So I think the top is lame. We don't need the water at all. That's really dumb. We should have a few more there. So you have more down there. It belongs here, giving quick access to both resources. I would go here, there, and up front. You can only get honey from the mirror later, so there are no short-term benefits. But we get these 3 resources early and these 2 soon after. We have them here, and you can see a special feature of the game. Pay attention to the indicator 7, a very central game feature of Old World. You have a certain number of command points each turn, and you need these command points for everything. For moving each unit, every movement point of a unit, that is each move, depends on the terrain you're moving on. Does founding a city cost command points? Command points for building a modernization? Check command points. A diplomatic initiative to see if you can find a wife for your ruler in a neighboring country. Command points for the instruction that your own son or daughter gets a court scholar. For the lessons, command points everywhere, command points everywhere. The start with really few, namely only 8 of them. And at the beginning, it's very, very important for us to get more command points per round as quickly as possible. At some point, that's no longer possible, but that's only important in the late game. Until then, it's a really crucial thing. I would start up here. We start with 8 points, then we have 7. Here we found our city and we have the choice. There are 4 families, 3 of them we can supply with cities, and they all have different characteristics. And you dedicate a city to a family. The families get upset if one family has cities everywhere and the others miss out. So you have to treat them about equally, and usually cities of the same family like to be next to each other. That means if we build a patchwork here, one family here, then the next, then the third, then the first again, then that also gives us penalties to our reputation with that family, and that's significant. This can lead to poorer troop performance, uprisings, and widespread problems. And let's take a look. If you give a city to the 3rd family, the 4th family is left out and can't be accommodated. Let's see, here we have a rider family. They have the advantage that no matter where you build a city, it's always considered connected to the capital, which especially ensures that the city isn't so dissatisfied. That means if we have remote cities far away from here, then the riders can be a cool choice. Landowner stations. If we have a city with many stations, you remember we Egyptians get 40 more yields. Take a look here. A city where the landowners are the family in charge. Train stations not only provide food, but also give 5 gold. Now just imagine, in the city where Cheops is our leader and ruler, no, we Egyptians. 40 more train stations, income from train stations, that also applies to money. We would just have a lot of money very quickly. In a city where we establish many train stations, and here there's a lot of water, it's very flat here if we have many train stations. That would already be an extremely good choice and a nice little feature. We can buy fields with money, so we can buy the connection to the camels and the connection to the horses with money. Clerical family cities have more satisfaction. Religion comes later. I'll found the clerics. Only if you have a territory with desert, because that's where the huge advantages are. Then you can build so-called urban expansions like garrisons, theaters, baths, and so on desert tiles. Unfortunately, I don't know, but the others do. And then there are the scholars who produce something. I personally think that's the most important. 2 city capital points per season, so per round. You need these city capital points to generate specialists who work in the upgrades and increase their yields. And if you've built on an upgrade and have a specialist on it, then your own borders will expand as a result. So landowner, it's actually logical here. Like a mini farm. The first thing we need is a cool city name, please, for our capital. I would like to choose German names, and I would like to choose flowery names, ones that are a bit poetic. Something like Pearl of the Orient or Honey Homeland or something like that. Hope Meadow Honey, a lot of wild and honey. Delicious dishes come to mind. I definitely don't want to have anything to do with jokes about cops and moss and cows and calves. I would like to have really romantic names. Honey River, yes, Honey River is okay. We're right next to goats here. How about honey, honey and milk? What would you think of the land where milk and honey flow? Milk and honey? Honeydew is suggested. What would you like? We can change our name at any time. Blossom of the Nile suggests Lamento. The issue is the river isn't really called the Nile, I think. Oh, it is called the Nile. No, how cool is that? Because we're at the Nile and we've uncovered it. You can found a city here. This is also a city location, but there are barbarians there. Here's a city and there are barbarians there too. That means we're building a settler first, which will be finished in 4 turns. With that, we can move down and found a city here. Next to it is silver. You can make a lot of money with that. Best regards to Test Detectives. Thank you for the 2nd subscription. Shavu Biel, thank you for the 7th subscription. Satraz, thank you for the 4th. Thank you very much. And down here with the barbarians, there will be a single defender at the start. And I would like to use that to conquer this city-state as quickly as possible. Maybe we can do it with just 1 unit. That's not out of the question. I'll move our warrior forward. Of course, we have to use the builder first. We need animal husbandry there, trapping and information technology here, but animal husbandry isn't yet possible anywhere. Marimia, thanks for your 2nd subscription. We're now also on YouTube with Prime. Thank you. Thank you to DST1348. Thank you. You find a warm bath stream as cozy as a warm bath. Thank you for the 17th subscription. And I can get it much later. Very late technology. That's not possible. That's not possible. Then I would say let's start with a farm. And you should build a farm where there is farmland. Man. And here you can see in the tooltip There are plains, plain, plain, hill forests, that's plain. And here it's really just plains, no farmland, just plains. Down here we can place several next to each other. And unfortunately no farmland here, that's it. I would say we'll gradually work our way up here and build one after another here. Let's do that. Then over here, we need a farm. Unfortunately, 3 commands, we still have 5. 1 command that clears the forest, a forest that is then completely cleared. So even the last stumps are removed and a 3rd action point from building the farm. Also, it costs 20 wood. We have 50 at the start. And permanently we get 7 gold and 8 food with it. Normally it's 5 food or 6, I think, and this 5 gold. But thanks to the 40 bonus as Egyptians, we have even more. For 3 rounds, he now uses 1 action point each round. Thanks to Snowblind for the 29th subscription. Thanks to Ocho for the 16th best regards to both of you. And I would leave the scout here for now and try to see if we can kill the barbarians here before the 2nd defender spawns. A defender will be inside and we'll try to catch him here. A defender is inside and you see in 4 turns the 2nd unit will appear. You can see it here. And the one that's inside is a skirmisher, that's a ranged unit, and we ourselves are a melee unit. And that seems to be Forest, I'm not sure, because Forest gives cool cover against skirmisher attacks. Let's see if we can make it. Theoretically, we would only have 1 action point, but we can't move it because we only have 0 action points left. And on to the next round. Oh, I forgot to assign the governor. Someone now needs another action point. That doesn't really help us at the moment anyway. We can assign Cheops later. We need to think about a technology for ourselves. At the start, we have the iron forges, which let us build warriors, and we have the stonemasons, which let us build quarries, and the workforce. With that, you can build roads to connect cities. Traps, post-prophecy administration. There you can build the granary, a building that you usually place next to farms, and it boosts the farms even more. 2% more yield, 2 growth, so I'll show you how you even want to, what this means here. The game separates food and growth. Growth is the icon above. You use it to build workers, scouts, militia, soldiers, and settlers. For producing warriors, on the other hand, you need training points, and for building specialists later, you'll need city capital points. These are the points up here. This is city capital, this is training, and growth is a local value. Yes? Thank you to Revilo International Labour Organization, very nice comment. We'll go outside again and take another look to see what's worth it for us. So we could place the granary somewhere and put farms around it so that it boosts all of them. Did we actually choose a good location for it here? It's okay, but you can change it later. I think I would have put the farm here instead and then boosted the 3 farms here, but you can also put a farm here later and then boost the 3 here. That works too. That would have been the best location, but that's not a river. Here you could have boosted 3. Here the wood, no, put the granary there. You could have boosted 1, 2, freshwater river, 3, boosted these 3 here. That would have been better. Let's go back. You can go back at any time. In the plot, the save file games are saved, which I find very useful for correcting mistakes. We want to place the granary here and start the farm here. No, that would be the best granary. That would be the ideal place for a granary here. Here you could even boost all 3, but you can only build a limited number of granaries per city. Yes, from here, exactly. Then we'll start here with the farm and work our way up. You save an action point here since it's just bushes and yields remain high. Once over here, we save an action point here because of the bushes. You need fewer action points to clear bushes than to clear forests. Then we can move forward up to here. Ah, no, action points are still gone. I said something wrong there. That's how it works now. Now let's take the granary, or that you can build shrines. You can build slingers for fighting enemies. That's cool too. But first, we'll build a settler. A slinger is also cool. But the farm will help us a lot. Most importantly, we'll need plenty of food later. You can attack using only warriors. We're heading to the administration and granary. Now move on to the next round. Here we are. And now we want to launch our first attack here. We're heading into the unknown right over here. We're more lucky than smart. Look at this. This is a forest field, and if they attack us here, they'll suffer a ranged combat penalty of -50 in the woods. It says -50, and you see a sword symbol there. The sword symbol is the attack value of a unit, which means the attack value of the barbarian unit on this field will be reduced by half. And in turn, we're attacking a unit that's standing on an urban area. You can see that at the top in the combat preview, and an urban area gives the unit. You can see a shield symbol at the top left. That's the defense, and it has 25 more. But they would always have that whenever we attack a city. That's always there. We deal 5 attack damage, and a unit has 20 hit points. I think that's very good. Up front, it cost us another action point. For our left, we used 1 for movement, 1 for the attack, and 1 is used by the farm builder here. Yes? Now, for the first time, we can either use our Cheops as a governor or move around with the scout. I would pass a law. I think we can actually pass a law. No, I think we're missing city capital. We have a research for that. The laws are somewhere up here. We could do slavery. Those are the categories of laws. There are 3 to 5 15 decisions, and for each one there are 2 alternatives to choose from. They are gradually unlocked through advances in research, and we already had 1 research that allowed us one of the 2 here. However, we need 400 city capitals worldwide, but we only have 208 and produce 8 per round. That means we can't enact these laws at the moment. So then I actually would... Cheops gets experience points as soon as the settler is finished. Before that, where he is doesn't matter. I'll walk around, collect some money, explore a bit, and then let's move up here once. We collect horses and only our scouts can do that, and they can only do it in a certain area within a certain distance around our cities. There, as long as a resource tile is not within the colored borders of our own culture, they can spend an action point to collect the resource. The resource doesn't disappear, it remains, but it is considered harvested. We use 1 action point to get 50 gold once. And down here, as you can see, there's a small white symbol. It's a bit inconspicuous. If you harvest here, you can't do it again immediately. You have to wait a few rounds first. Next, I'd like to harvest up here. Or we could scout here first, because later we also have to decide where to settle here when you move a scout onto a forest tile. We've discovered a landmark, and apparently it's a valley, the Wadi El Rayyan. We can give it a name, we can use a preset name, or we can choose a name ourselves. No matter what we do, we get 2 legitimacy. That's a resource that reinforces our rule. I'll explain in a moment how the game works technically. Wadi El Rayyan actually sounds pretty cool. I'd say Wadi El Wald. Wadi is still a valley, right? Or is it a forest? I think it's a valley. How about Evergreen Valley? Or Green Valley? Wadi means a dry riverbed. The chat says it's a dried up river course. Then it doesn't fit well. Then we'll just give it any other name. Always Green Forest. Because we won't cut wood here, I hope so. Or in honor of our Cheops, Cheops Forest. We want to honor our ruler, Nile and the Forest of Cheops. Alright, now we have no action points left, as it says down here. He took cover. Since he's on a forest tile and no enemy is nearby, he's in cover. We're being attacked by barbarians and only have 2 hit points left. Reminder, we deal 5 damage. In 2 rounds, the next single attack will spawn. 1 gets experience points, 10 hit points remain. Attacking twice is not possible. We can't do anything here, we can just wander around a bit. Let's go here once. Oh, how nice, it's good that we came this way. Let me explain the legitimacy thing. We have 2 legitimacy points. Look below to my left for the crown symbol. Our ruler gains legitimacy through many successful actions, also through the job as governor, so we need to keep that in mind too. Then he gains experience points. Certain experience points also convert into certain legitimacy, and when we've built a lot, so all actions in the game potentially generate points, legitimacy points, which then reach certain thresholds, and then he gets a new nickname. The more actions he's responsible for, the cooler the nickname becomes, and with it, a new level of legitimacy. You can also gain legitimacy through events, discoveries, and other means. And an important point is that this scales directly with the number of command points per round. That means, I think, for every 5 legitimacy points you get, or rather every 10 legitimacy points are converted into extra command points that you have. At the moment, we have 16 legitimacy, and that means plus 1.6 extra commands per round. Let's move in here. An event, survivors. The village was only recently looted, and we found a group of survivors huddling in the ruins. These destitute refugees apparently want to leave the wreckage of their old lives behind to join our nation, but our culture is foreign to them. What will you do with them? We invite them to build a new life in our country, then we get a free worker, or we get a free scout and a one-time bonus of 3 command points. The scout is usually the better choice in 4X games, but not here, because right now we don't have enough command points per round to employ 2 scouts. On the other hand, the worker is needed. When he operates somewhere and builds an upgrade, he only uses 1 command point per round. That's definitely the better decision. That's him. Before we continue, however, a quick note on our own behalf. Here we go. Mats is in the chat discussing monitors. You know, I have a sponsor. That's the company Asus Republic of Gamers. They're my equipment supplier. And Christmas time is coming up. And if you're thinking about getting a new monitor for yourself or as a gift, I'll do a quick 2-minute commercial before we continue with Old World. And Marcel, who's also present in the chat right now, has a cool tip for you. He's our community's hardware expert and recommends this monitor. Listen to learn why. A huge thank you to Marcel, who's also personally present in the chat right now. The link to the monitor was just posted on Twitch. Feel free to check it out on YouTube. It's in the text description below and also in a pinned comment from me. Maybe that was an ad that wasn't too intrusive. That's my hope, and maybe it gave you a cool tip. Let's continue, but now... Continuing with Old World, have fun, and thanks to Master Wushel for the 30-second subscription greetings, and thank you. Alright, we still have 4 action points left. We fought here and we fought there. We just got a free worker, and in 9 turns we can... build the granary. We wanted to place it here in the middle, then we can already put a few things around it. He could still take another action. Please build a farmhouse once. By the way, we'll need food later for training more settlers. Each one costs 100 food. We're currently getting wood by clearing land, which gives us a one-time amount. At the moment, we don't have any source of wood anywhere. The only source is clearing land. Here's a little tip for getting started. You can also get wood just by clearing land, even without building a modernization on it. Wood regrows, but it takes time. Yeah, but that's one way you can get wood, and I think... if I remember correctly, you can also clear wood outside your own cultural borders. Maybe the veterans in the chat can quickly confirm that again. Yeah, now we don't have any action points left. And on to the next turn. Good comment in the chat. Clearing and felling are different things. When you fell trees, stumps remain, but clearing them removes them entirely. That means the first action gives you wood and allows it to grow back later. You can then take another action and then the wood is gone for good. Thank you. We were attacked here again. Yes, our legacy is secured. Oh, big blunder on my part. I didn't even check if our pharaoh had a wife. She did, it was the wife. Meritides, a righteous fanatic, you know, she's 18 years young. Our pharaoh is 20. We can name our child a daughter after her mother or after the consort after our mother, Teferes, Simat or Sibad. It doesn't have to be that way, but it's very likely that from this, the queen will become the female pharaoh for the late game. That means it's an important decision which name she gets. Personally, I don't think it's necessary to make up the names of consorts and so on. Because the problem is if they're still alive, and they probably will be for a while, then there's a risk of change. That's why I don't think it's a good idea. Why not just use a made-up name like Simat? Personally, I don't find a Tefres all that nice. Or something like a Teferes. Should we name the little daughter after her mother? Question in the chat. Should the little daughter be named after her grandmother? No, I won't do Meritites. As I said, the wife might be confused. No one in the chat has an opinion, so I'll do it myself. Then after Grandma. All right, then Grandma Eteferis. We have 7 action points and we'll handle the key ones first. We've finished one round. Now here's the second unit. Next round. If there are 2 defenders here, the second one will probably be standing outside. It'll likely be another skirmish unit, and the next will take a while. They're both working. I would say if we want to get experience points for our pharaoh because the settlers were created up here, we should make him governor this turn. Yes. Then build a few quarries up here later. We can send him somewhere else later, but for now let's let him gain some experience points. And gives us... oh, we should have done that earlier. Look, 4.2 more gold each round and 2 more in growth, so settlers, workers, scouts and militiamen are produced faster. I had to use the one that costs 2 action points to appoint as governor. I need to explain something to you quickly. About the growth, at the moment the growth is being used up, so the 14 growth points generated in the city are completely consumed to produce a settler. If we're not currently producing a unit in the city that uses growth, then the growth level in the city increases instead. Eventually, as shown here, it creates a new citizen, which is clear. That's where the new citizen shows in the tooltip. 14 per turn up to 100 BAM new citizen, and then you assign the citizens as specialists. You can see the little dot here at the station. At the moment we have 3 citizens in the city. As I said, the 4th would appear if we had growth up to 100. And we can click on this here. I'll do that now. Then a specialist will appear here over time. The specialist will be added to the construction queue. And in turn, he now uses city capital points, which means he preserves growth once we're here in 3 turns. And instead, no city capital is accumulated. However, city capital is not accumulated locally, but worldwide, globally. And it would have the effect that it would give 1 more research point, 1 growth point, 3.5 money for food. And that it expands the borders by several tiles and we could build more farms, but we're not doing any of that. Instead, we'll build another settler later. We'll buy the resources we need for that. By the way, we can actually do that right now. We can spend money now. How much do we have? 287. We can already put the second settler into the build queue. If I hold down the Alt key, it shows me that I'm automatically buying what's needed for the settler. That means 100 food. We currently have 34 and gain 1 per turn. That means we're now buying the food we're missing between 34 and 100 for 274 gold. 1. Build queue, next part. Now we have 4 actions up here we've fought. Here I would continue right away with the next farm. And then only he can perform actions. He has already moved. We don't have any units left that can perform an action. We have exactly 0 action points. So that means it's on to the next round again. Just a reminder, at the moment, today is the 27th November 2025. I'm not recommending buying the game from Games Planet this time. There's a link to Games Planet below in the description because it's not discounted there at the moment. But on Steam, it's currently 75% off under 10 euros. I'll also put that link in the description below. That could be an option if you're interested. The DLCs are also discounted, but not as much. And the link to the Colonasis monitor can also be found below here on YouTube.